Today, I'm going to teach you an incredibly important concept that comes from the world of psychotherapy. It comes from the work that I do in the field of solution-focused brief therapy, and it is related to being optimistic. Now, before I teach you this concept, I want to teach you why this is so massively important and massively impactful. Number one, most of us experience negative self-talk. And that negative self-talk is usually absolute. That negative self-talk is like, I've always been a failure. That negative self-talk is like, I've never succeeded in anything. That negative self-talk is like, I can't do this thing, right? Like, that's that negative self-talk that really drives us. But there's an antidote to it. Now, listen, I've used a lot of cliches this week, and I'm not really pleased with myself because I pride myself on being a person who does not use a lot of cliches, and I've used a few cliches this week, and I'm about to use another one that says the man who says they can't do something and the man who says they can are both right. Now, what does that mean? That means if you have that negative self-talk that tells you, oh, I can't do this, or I can't do that, or I'm never going to do this, or I'm never going to do that, you're going to end up right. So that means we have to have a way of turning our negative self-talk into optimistic talk, into positive self-talk, into an optimistic mindset. And I'm going to teach you a concept today that's going to allow you to do just that. So welcome back to the aha moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie. Here's the super important concept. And in the world of psychotherapy, in the solution-focused world, it's known as exceptions. Now, solution-focused brief therapy was developed by a team of people in Milwaukee. That team was led by Steve DeShazer, Insoo Kim Berg, and a few other people in the late 1970s. And one of the ideas that they created was this idea of exceptions, which means there is no such thing in the world as 100%. So every successful person has had some failure, and every person that has failed has had some success, because you can't have 100%. This comes from the idea that there's no such thing as perfection. So if someone can't be perfectly good, that means you can't be imperfectly bad either. There must be some good amongst the bad, and there must be some bad amongst the good. So what I want you to think about is when you have those feelings that are like, I've never succeeded, or I've never accomplished anything, or I've never done such and such, I want you to literally sit and look in your history for exceptions. So, for example, when I was in high school, I wasn't a terribly good student, but that doesn't mean I failed every class every time. So I look back, like, what was a class I did really well in? What was an assignment I did really well in? What was that one thing that I did really well in? And let that disprove the rule. So when you have a moment you're like, I've done nothing but fail, I want you to remember that like 7th grade project you got an A on. Because then that exception disproves the rule that you've never done anything good. Now, that was just an example of like, some 7th grade project or whatever, but it could be anything. Could be anything. But when you feel like I can't succeed, or when you feel like that negative self-talk is really working, find an exception in your history that disproves the rule. This is such a powerful concept that we literally use it in therapy. Someone will come to therapy and they'll say something like, I've always been depressed. And I'm very likely to ask a question like, when was a time amongst your life where the depression seemed to go away, even for a minute, or even dissipate? And people will always say things, well, this one time when I was 12, I really felt on top of the world because of this, and this that was happening, right? So there's always an exception to disprove the problem rule. So when you feel your negative self-talk is taking hold and running rampant and impacting you, and your negative self-talk it'll cause you to take less chances. It'll cause you to feel lower about yourself. It'll cause you not to believe in yourself. It'll cause you to feel less than. That negative self-talk is a real booger. Like, it'll really, really impact you. So I want you to like really work at that and just be like, okay, where in my history is an exception that disproves the rule? Because that will start making you go, oh, okay, so I'm not a total failure. I had that thing happen that was an example of my ability to be successful. And if I can build my mindset around that thing, then I can be successful. So I want everybody to practice that. Just right now, just sit and think, what are some exception moments in my history that disprove the problem rule? And watch what it does to your mood, your mindset, your affect, your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-value, all of those really positive things.
Thanks for being here. If you wouldn't mind doing me a super huge favor, I would love it if you would share this podcast with at least one person in your life that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And also don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you listen to your podcast. And also follow me on all of the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky. You can search for my name, Elliott Connie, or at Elliott Speaks. That's my handle across all platforms. Can't wait to see you tomorrow.